Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street EnergyWeb Foundation, EWT, the token, on our radar today in this video. So I'm back from holiday, fully refreshed, and let's go straight into this because there's been some good movement on EWT in the chart. I just want to have a quick recap around why I'm so interested in this particular token and the sector in general of energy. Now, obviously, energy is a huge sector, a huge industry worth trillions of dollars. And something that's very much on topic all the time about climate change. We've got the aspect of what's going on with the energy hikes around the world right now. So first and foremost, I want to engineer this into people's minds that this is a big thing coming over the next few years. We know that blockchain is more and more coming into the energy sector, as it is with a multitude of different industries and areas around the world. But for sure, the energy sector needs a massive revamp, a lot more transparency, and certainly a better and fairer system for everyone, both in public and private sectors, business or individuals like you and I in our homes. Now, I've pushed many times in the past the concept of Web3 energy provision. This means that you can become a prosumer rather than a consumer, utilizing all the energy that you get from solar panels and other renewable sources and passing this around the world or to other people or to your neighbors via carbon credits. This is no different really to the existing brokerage system that operates within energy right now. The difference being is pretty much we don't get to see how on earth they come up with these prices and standard rates and things like this in the first place. We're just told an end price. Whilst we see the big energy companies like Shell and BP boasting magnificent profits of billions upon billions of dollars per quarter, the rest of us are sat here wondering how on earth we're going to pay next month's bill. They chuck some free money at us, which is basically complete annihilating system anyway of borrowing and increasing inflation and all this stuff. But what choice do we have, right? So I'm still obviously all skeptical about that. Some people obviously need the help, and rightly so. But we now need to start understanding from a technological perspective and a more fairer perspective of how we can model energy moving forward. And that's what EnergyWeb is partially looking to do. The whole digitalization of energy, the transparency of it, what should be the price based on exact supply and demand, not what someone goes, oh, actually, yeah, I think it should be this high, we need to do this. We've got these people like Ofgem and stuff supposedly being the validators and the people protecting us in inverted commas, and not really actually doing anything. Like, who controls these bodies? Who puts them in charge? Who as we as people, how do we get a say in any of this? Well, we don't. We just pay the bills, right? So this is where we are with it. And of course, one of the big topics around in Australia right now, and we cover another project, Power Ledger. They're both very, very good projects. The reason I particularly like EWT slightly more is because they're already very heavily integrated with big organizations and big levels of departments of governments and energy sector companies as well, to the point of things like the European Commission, which is very important if you want to get any kind of structure technologically, financially, whatever it might be, into big regions like this or big continents. You have to be accepted and go through these channels, and they're already in there. And we'll go into that in a second a bit more, but you see these project numbers are rising and rising each month almost. The partnerships are massive, and yet it's great to chuck names out there. I mean, this is a great tweet. In fact, it's a big thread actually from this channel here, Crypto Nova. Do go check it out because it's really cool. It's massive. I don't really have time to read it all, but I picked out this particular slide because this is very imperative to understand like who they're working with and what they're doing. This is a snapshot, by the way. This is not all of the people that they're working with, but you can see there's some big energy companies here on this list already. E.ON, who I'm personally with, who claim to be 100% renewable, yet the bills are all still going up. I really don't understand that, because we've got more wind turbines than ever, more solar farms than ever, because the agricultural bill came in 2020, where people didn't really know overnight pretty much, and farmers were told about the standardization reductions and the fact that we're actually not really going to support you guys anymore. Hence the farmers go, well, I don't need this land anymore, so they go and put solar farms on them. Whether they control them or sell them to private companies is another question. Sorry for the rant, but this is the whole point, is that we are regurgitating this whole aspect of energy increase in renewables, but the bills are still going up. Well, why is this? Well, it's because of profit and money and the sense of control. As a good friend, well, I don't say friend, but someone that I read and listen to, for example, David Icke says, once you have dependency, the element of dependency, you have the element of control. And this is fully sure where it's all going over the next few years with CBDCs, energy, the way we finance things, pay for things or can't pay for things because you haven't done this or that, tracking, tracing, etc. This is no different to the energy sector. So I find it very interesting when I invest in crypto assets in particular, particularly blockchain related, of course, which they all are. Because I always said to all my friends and in my groups, I am essentially, and as are you, if you're an investor, almost investing in the demise of society, really. And the question is, down this path, at what point do we go, right, I need to remove myself from the system, or how do I do this? That time is coming, I feel, in the next 2-3 years. And certainly by 2025, when all the CBDCs and the new financial structure kicks in, I anticipate the energy sector to be very similar as well. So you can be going down an avenue of savviness through Web3 energy protocols, or you can go down the route of potentially controlled system. This is the whole difference between centralized and decentralized. Can decentralization even win at all? Who knows? Because if you have a society built around a specific law or avenue, how on earth are you supposed to be able to do that anyway? So, they'll find a way, I'm sure. But for now, it's about investing and trying to see what we can do in this space of time. And that's why I believe in EWT, because of this massive sector that it's in and the way that blockchain energy is going. And just to touch on these points, this is what's happening, guys, worldwide. Energy theft reports soar. We have ridiculous bill prices going up. We have now got credit going into our accounts from governments whilst they bail out all the energy companies and this, that and the other, and give us some money for us to then go spend elsewhere, basically, which is what people will do. They won't save that money. They'll just go and put it somewhere else. This is how human psychology works. I learned very well when I was in debt a few years ago to be really savvy with money now, and that's my lesson learned. And that now gets sat behind as a saving. In fact, I don't even do it. I just upped it back up to the normal price of my energy bills, because I know at some point in a few months it's all going to go crazy, and I want that credit in there as a balance. But some people can't do that. Some people aren't in that position, and that's why the system's there to hopefully help people out, to make them realise. I just hope people utilise it in the best way possible. This world is a mess, guys. It's I'm not going to say the word, but let's just say it's annoying me significantly. I'm walking past more and more homeless people than ever before. I was at the Spurs game the other day, and a really cool guy, I believe his name's Tosh, that's what the name was on the pieces of paper that he was written on, and he's the homeless poet, and I sat with him, I bought him a sandwich, and I listened to one of his poems, and it was absolutely brilliant. But we were talking literally about the craziness of the world. And eventually I just get up and I go on with my day, but he's still sat there, and it gets in my head all day. And the whole concept of homelessness, one of my big targets is to try and defeat homelessness with blockchain somehow over the next few years, working with other people to do that. But my point being is the topics that we discussed while sat there in Wood Green in London was, what's going on? How has this happened? And like, what's the effect on people? And obviously it was clear as day, like, not just with bills and money, of course, there's loads of other reasons, why this all happens. But I think it's disgusting, guys. I think it's disgusting that people work all their lives, or they work really hard and then they get let down, whether that's the system, or is it ourselves letting ourselves down for following that system and not having another view of things. I don't know. These are big questions, and I'm sorry it's gone a bit of a tangent, but again, things like this, libraries and museums to be warm havens for people struggling with energy bills. We're going to have people going into our libraries to keep warm, right? This is how ridiculous this is. I went to a supermarket. I don't really go to supermarkets. I buy stuff online or it arrives. Like I can't be bothered. I hate it. I hate shopping in general. I don't like spending money, and I certainly don't like supermarkets. But I had to go in one. I haven't been in one for like a year or so, maybe even since the pandemic. And literally, it was about 9 p.m. And back in my day, I sound like a really old person or not, but certainly in my early 20s when I was working like in retail and stuff, you get a lot of like younger people working, and this, that, and the other is pretty normal and standard. Like it's like stacking shelves and whatever. Right now, I'm seeing senior citizens at 9:10 p.m. I even saw one person in the local Sainsbury's crawling along the floor to stack shelves. They were crawling on the floor because they have trouble walking, and they were literally shoving food along the floor. Not food, it sounds like really bad, but like they were shoving like packets of biscuits and stuff like across the floor to get to the lower areas quicker on the other side and stack stuff. I thought this is ridiculous. Like, people have been working their whole lives, and this is how we're treated as people at the end of it, to continue to work because they know what's coming. They have to pay for bills and this, that, and the other. It's not how it should be, you know. Work should always come second anyway in life, in the grand scheme of things, but it doesn't. Unfortunately, it's as they say, the money is an unfortunate necessity in some ways. And I think this is really sad, guys. This is why I believe, hopefully, that blockchain companies like EWT will do the right thing and help us. But as was said earlier in this video, a lot of them are already going down into centralized systems because they have to in order to get the traction. But then who takes control after that? We have to be mindful of this. So as an investor, I'm thinking, well, I want to make money off this. Also, my morals kick in to the other side to be like, what's actually coming around the corner? So I think it's really interesting. But please do let us know what you think about all this, because I think it's really, really interesting to see what people think about that aspect of things. So I'm just going to jump into the pricing of EWT right now, because we have had some good movements, right? Quite in the last couple of days, and in fact over 30% in the last 48 hours. So let's just jump into that right now, because I think everyone will find this quite interesting to see where we are going with this. So we have jumped up, guys, quite nicely. It's not huge. If you zoom out, it's really not gigantic, but we have to take every advantage as we get them, right? And especially with EWT, it usually comes around some announcement periods, or people start finally realizing that, you know, this is a really top project. But you also see, because of the values, I think as well, like a $1 increase in psychological terms does impact people's mindsets to an extent of like, well, this is really interesting, and then people jump in. So there's loads of different variables as to why this is happening. But for right now, we're just going to discuss this aspect that we've gone from 378 to 488. So pretty much that just over $1 mark movement in the last 48 hours or 24 hours at least. And we're seeing really good performance on the right hand side here. 29% up on the week, 20% up on the month. This 3-month one is fantastic, of 88% increase. Isn't it interesting? Because we're in a bear market, but this one's doing really well, and I do believe it's fully around that aspect of the energy conversation. What's going to be happening with energy moving forward? And this is where I think people get more and more savvy about putting their money in the right places, rather than the last few years perhaps being very sporadic, chasing money. And I'm prone to this as well, by the way, guys. I'm not preaching anything here. I followed this pattern quite a bit as well. That's how I learned it all. But now perhaps consolidating their assets into ones that they feel like, what is the actual trend of the world? This is how we mature as a market, as we mature as investors. And I think that's slowly happening. This 6-month one is potentially about to switch over into green as well, which is absolutely brilliant. There's not many projects out there that can boast those 4 being green. The year to date and the year, I'm not going to focus on too much right now, because I think that's still got a fair few months to go before we start seeing a bit of retaliation to green and that side of things. But yeah, for now, it's very much focused around this particular area. So I'm quite interested in this, because we're now matching 2 top points. One we saw in August, and one we saw in September. It's almost like nearly a monthly trend, isn't it? Nothing really in October happened, but we're hitting this barrier. And this is going to be really interesting to see how this develops, because in the history of EWT, if we scale across, we see a rejection around here in July 2021. We saw a lot of bounce off effect back at the early stages of this year before the bear market pulled it back further down. So we're basically testing this particular area again. And what I mean is this kind of like fib retracement level. In fact, I'm just going to pull this across just so we can see this in a bit more detail. So you can see that, let me just remove that one. And what you can see here is we're pushing this particular boundary here around $5. Now, today, it's not quite there yet, $4.90. It made a good effort. But you see these ones back here 5.24. I think just around here we just went over $5. So it's a big barrier, right? $5. But there's two areas of interest to me right now. One is, can we penetrate that $5 and keep above it? I don't think the momentum's there right now. That's not to say it won't happen, but on the way back down, there are two still significant areas. This one back at here on just under $4, but one in particular as well around this area. This fib retracement level is just under, literally just under $4.50. Okay, so this is an area potentially to dive back into. At the moment, it's on an upward trend. I find it always risky to do that because you don't know what's kind of like the big situation. We have to look at things like the RSIs. At the moment, 14-day is 69, which is quite high in my opinion. Whenever there's a 70, I tend to start selling some initial investments from when I was buying at the lower regions of around sort of 35 to 40. I'm not doing that this time around because I believe in the longevity of EWT. I'm not really fussed about selling EWT at like $10 or anything like this. I'm waiting really now, buying as much as I can under $10 for that like $100, $200 mark. Whether that's next year or a few years time will remain to be seen, but I do think it will definitely get to those kind of areas eventually. But the 28-day at 60 as well is relatively at the higher region, right? So for me right now, I'm not going to be jumping into the EWT, even though I see some really nice green. I bought loads of EWT at the lower regions of like $3, etc. And it's on its way up, which is brilliant to see. So if I was coming into this for the first time and I had an understanding of how the movements work, my lowest point right now would be around that 450 as a DCA marker, and back down at this sort of maybe 420 or $4 mark as well. That's not to say that we're definitely coming back down here in the very short term, but I have to prepare that. Because I'm not going to be jumping in a FOMO attitude. Look what's happened. Exactly the same thing here. Drop down. People were jumping in here. I remember it very well. They were jumping in at $4 and it fell down, and you've lost $1 of your money per one that you put in. This is how it can happen. It then rose again. There's a couple of really good announcements around this period of time, but similar patterns occurred. We're still in a bear market, guys. We have to follow a trend pattern. We have to be cautious and understand what's going on, right? So this is where we are with EWT. We've hit that $5 mark again. It's clearly not wanting to go over it just yet and stay over that line. So we have right now, as of recording, an indicator to say that $5 is too much at this moment in time. Could change overnight, of course, but we need it to stabilize over $5 for us to go, oh wow, it's actually making a move and stabilizing at 5 with a new support level potentially. But at this moment in time, I wouldn't even say that 450, this 450 mark has any stabilization either. It's failed here. Completely rejected it. It's failed this position. It dropped straight back down. It dragged itself back down here in September. So I think it's great that we're trying to push for that $5, but I think that 450 is still needing to be ticked off. My argument would be around this 3.8 mark or even the $4 mark is looking quite healthy right now in terms of structure and stability. We've seen a lot of movement around this area quite now, and it's not like pulling itself like it did back here in August back down to these lower $3 marks. As I said, we're still in a bear market. Things can happen still, as I said, with bills and things like this, but we take it for what it is right now. And as it is right now, those are the two markers that I'd be quite interested in putting additional EWT in. I'm not going to do it on the way up. So as I said, 450 is something that we're looking to try and obtain as a support line. At the moment, it's failing it. But certainly $4 is looking quite strong to say that we look like we've got a support area here that's quite significant. So that's where we are with EWT right now. As I said, it's coming up quite steep movement here. I'm not going to be jumping in. I could anticipate that we might see some further increase in price, but again, it's more for me as an investor already holding it to go, well, I don't really want to put that risk of putting loads more in right now, knowing that we're at higher regions already. Irrespective of it's only been 2 days, we've seen this pattern a number of times in the last few months. So just be wary, guys. That's going to wrap up the video there. I'm going to cover EWT in a few days' time again as well, because we'll have a bit more of a deep dive into the energy sector. But until that video, guys, thanks for watching this one. We will see you very soon. Bye-bye.